Okay guys, this is Alex Trade Spot HD and welcome back to another talking video. This has been my 12th talking video of the channel, and what I'm about to discuss in this video is just one thing I need to discuss about in this video, and that's the tiering system that will come into effect in England from next Thursday, when lockdown ends next Wednesday in England. Yeah, excuse my hair guys, it's a bit messy. I'm waiting for the hairdressers to open back up. So yeah, tiered system comes into effect next Thursday, like I said. And before I announce what places are being put into what tiers and that, just to give you a reminder on that, I want to first discuss the, shall we say, the obvious hate that has come into this tiered system. As you know, this tiered system will be a much stricter one, which it needs to be in a way, because as you know, at this time of year, guys, viruses are more active in the winter months than the summer and that. So it does need to be more of a stricter one. It's just the fact that they've put low COVID rate places in the higher tiers, which I find absolutely bloody pathetic. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that part. Low COVID rate places doesn't need to be in the higher tiers. They need to be in the tier 1. They don't need to be in the higher tiers. That just mind boggles me to pieces. Really, it's just not right. It really is not. But yeah, and obviously they're going to review this tiering system on the 16th of December. They're going to review it every 2 weeks apparently. And as you know, the rules are going to be relaxed for 1 week during Christmas to allow people to meet up, family and friends. Will that cause a rise in COVID rates? Who knows? We'll have to wait to find out on that one, guys. Yeah. So, what I'm about to do now, guys, is announce which places have been put into what tiers. Just to give you an idea, just in case you did miss it. So we start with the Northwest, and by the way, the Northwest have done well. Their R rate is actually below 1. Their R rate, I believe, is at 0.7 to 0.9, so they've done really well. Because a couple of weeks ago, the Northwest was really bad, but now it's looking pretty better for them. So, but of course, North have had a lot of really harsh restrictions being put on them the last couple of weeks. Well, even the last couple of months, since practically since the start of September. So, they've done well. They've done well. So, guys, the Northwest, Greater Manchester, is unfortunately in the very high tier 3, which doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. Same with Lancashire, Blackpool, Blackburn and Darwin, which I'm assuming is probably near Blackburn, I think, is in the very high tier 3. Now, as you know, the Liverpool City region was actually in tier 3 before the lockdown came in November. And as you know, in the Liverpool City region, they've done mass testing in Liverpool, and that has paid off tremendously, because that's downgraded the Liverpool City region to the high tier. I think if it wasn't for the mass testing that they did do in Liverpool during lockdown, then I think the Liverpool City region probably would have been in the very high tier still. But their rewarded is that Liverpool is now in the high tier instead of the very high tier. So congratulations to Liverpool. Of course, you don't want to be in the high tier either, because it's the higher tier is it's not as bad as the very high tier, but there is quite a few little strict restrictions in the high tier as well. You really want to be in tier 1, of course. Yeah. Moving on, guys. Warrington and Cheshire is in the high tier 2, and Cumbria is in the high tier, tier 2. So as you can see, Northwest has fared pretty well now. And if you want to know where Cumbria is, guys, that's in Carlisle. So, yeah. Moving on to the northeast, looks like there's only 2 places here in the northeast, which is pretty weird. Tees Valley and northeast itself are in the very high tier, tier 3, so that's not good for them. Moving on to the Yorkshire and the Humber, West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire are all in the very high tier, tier 3, that's not good for them either. York and North Yorkshire, however, are in the high tier, tier 2. Work that one out. That just baffles me. It really does. So as you can see, the Yorkshire and Humber are not faring well because they're going to get the most strictest one. As I said, guys, you don't want to be in the very high tier because tier 3 is the most. It feels like a lockdown still if you're in the very high tier. So yeah. Moving on to the East Midlands, guys. We got Leicester and Leicestershire. I don't know why they put Leicester and Leicestershire. I think Leicester and Leicestershire is the same thing, isn't it? Basically. Leicester and Leicestershire is in the very high tier, tier 3. Same with Derby and Derbyshire. They put Derby and Derbyshire. I don't know why they've done that. Anyway, very high tier, tier 3. Lincolnshire, the very high tier, tier 3. They put Nottingham and Nottinghamshire as well. I don't get that. I really don't. It's the same place, isn't it? Anyway, Nottingham, Nottinghamshire, very high tier, tier 3. Northamptonshire and Rutland are in the high tier, tier 2. So as you can see, East Midlands are not faring very well either. A few places in the very high tier. Like I said, you don't want to be in the very high tier because that feels like a lockdown still. Moving on to West Midlands, we got Birmingham and Black Country in the very high tier, tier 3. That doesn't surprise me, to be honest, unfortunately. I've been to Birmingham a few times in the past, and Birmingham's obviously a big place with a lot of people, so that doesn't surprise me that Birmingham are in the very high tier, unfortunately. So we got Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent in the very high tier, tier 3. Bit surprised at that in a way, because I don't think Stoke-on-Trent's not exactly a big place. I don't know, I could be wrong on that, but yeah. We got Warwickshire, Coventry and Solihull in the very high tier, tier 3. So as you can see, there's a lot of places in the very high tiers, which is obviously not good, is it? You got Shropshire, Telford are in the high tier, tier 2. Herefordshire, the high tier, tier 2. Worcestershire, high tier, tier 2. So, you know, Herefordshire and Worcestershire, high tier, tier 2. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad if you're in tier 2. You can still get around and do stuff. You can still go to a pub and that, which I will come to in a minute and explain all that. London. Now, this one is the most important one. Because as you know, London is the capital of the UK. London is in high tier, tier 2. That is vital, because if London was in the very high tier, tier 3, that would have been bad. That would have been really bad. So, yeah. So, keeping near London area, sort of, we got Essex and Southend-on-Sea, the high tier, tier 2. Norfolk, high tier, tier 2. Got Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, high tier, tier 2. Hertfordshire, I should say, Hertfordshire, that was hard to say, is in the tier 2, high tier. Suffolk, high tier, tier 2. So those places I fared well. They've avoided the very high tier. That's not bad. Moving on to the southeast, quite a few places here in the southeast. Hampshire. God, that was hard to say. That should be easy to say. Portsmouth and Southampton are in the high tier, tier 2. Now, the Isle of Wight is in tier 1, the medium tier. Not many places are in tier 1. There is 2 more places that have been put into tier 1, which I'll come to very soon. East and West Sussex and Brighton are in Tier 2, so that's alright for them. Surrey's in Tier 2, Reading, Wokingham, Bracknell Forest, Windsor, Maidenhead and West Berkshire, the high tier, Tier 2, so that's fine for them. Slough is in a very high tier, Tier 3, Buckinghamshire, high tier, Tier 2, Oxfordshire is in the high tier, Tier 2, Kent and Medway is in a very high tier, Tier 3, Bristol, obviously moving on to southwest now of course, where I live, Bristol, South Gloucestershire, North Somerset, the very high tier, Tier 3. I was pretty surprised at that actually. I was pretty stunned that Bristol and especially North Somerset gone into very high tier. I was really surprised at that one, guys. So we got Somerset, Bath and North East Somerset in the higher tier. Work that one out. So you got North Somerset in the very high tier, and you got North East Somerset, which is not very far away from North Somerset. So you got North East Somerset in the high tier, and you got North Somerset in the very high tier. Work that one out, guys. It just baffles me. It really does. Now we got Dorset, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole in the high tier, Tier 2. Gloucestershire, high tier, Tier 2. Wiltshire and Swindon, high tier, Tier 2. Devon, where I live, is in the high tier, Tier 2, which is, I was pretty surprised at that one, really. We should be in Tier 1. We've had very low COVID rates right throughout the pandemic, and we've been put into the high tier. It absolutely baffles me, guys. It really does. And finally, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly are in Tier 1, the medium tier. So there we go. Those are all the places that are in what tiers. So you got Cornwall, Isles of Scilly and Isle of Wight. Those are the only places that have been put into Tier 1 so far. So, yeah. So just give you a little idea of what to expect in what tier. I'm going to go down the list of this as well very quickly. I don't want this talking video to go on and on. I just want to get it done. So Tier 1, household mixing. The rule of 6 applies indoors and out. Venues can open, but table service only and last orders by 10 p.m. Close at 11. Shops, gyms and hairdressers all open. A theatre and cinema can open with social contact limits. Work. Oh, so even if you're in Tier 1, they're still saying that you should still work from home. Interesting. Travelling, walk or cycle if possible, and avoid travel into Tier 3 areas, except where necessary. Hotels can open, nurseries, schools and that, universities are all open, as you know. Places of worship will open, but must able by the rule of 6. Weddings and funerals obviously can happen, no more than 15 guests at weddings. Wedding section at wakes, 30 guests for funerals. So they put in 15 guests for weddings, but 30 guests for funerals. I don't get that, guys. I really don't. How can you have 15 guests at a wedding, but 30 guests at a funeral? It just baffles me. It really does. So going on to sport and exercise classes, organised adult sport can take place outdoors and indoors, but follow the rule of 6. And now they're allowing fans to return to football stadiums. Capacity 4,000 outdoors, 1,000 indoors, which is lower apparently, something like that. Tier 2 is pretty much the same. All shops, gyms and hairdressers can open. Yeah, it's pretty much, Tier 2 is pretty much the same. The only difference in Tier 2, you're not allowed to mix indoors. You can only mix outdoors. And of course, as you know, Tier 3, I'm not going to go through it because I don't want to bore you all to death, guys, because this talking video is coming out in 15 minutes. Tier 3 is basically still like a lockdown, like I said, albeit that they are allowing shops, gyms and hairdressers to stay open still in Tier 3. So yeah, obviously Tier 3 cinemas can't open, and no events can take place. So that's basically it. Those are the tiers. And one last thing to end the video on, guys. The R rate is now just below 1 for the whole of England. It's at 0.9 to 1. According to this picture that I got now, it may have changed, but according to this picture, you got the Yorkshire number at 0.8 to 1. Like I said, North West have done well at 0.7 to 0.9. Midlands at 0.9 to 1.1. East of England 0.9 to 1.1. London at 1 to 1.1. South East is still not doing that great. 1 to 1.2. And here down here in the Southwest 0.9 to 1.1. So you can see that most places in England are getting there. They're slowly getting there, but below 1. But of course, we're coming into the winter months, and it could rise again when rules are relaxed and people are mixing and that. So we could probably expect to see cases and deaths rise again very soon, unfortunately. But you know, it's a sacrifice, unfortunately. We may see another lockdown in January, guys. So be prepared for that. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this talking video. I thought I'll give you a rundown of the tiering system, what places are in what tiers, and of course, like I said, there's been a lot of rebellion and a lot of hate on this tiering system, and like I said, a lot of places being put into unfair tiers, I would say. Let me know your views on it. So until next time, from me here, doing my talking video in my bedroom, I'll see you all soon, guys. Take care. Love you all.